And we are live. How's everybody this evening? Had a little technical difficulty. A bunch of old men trying to use technology, and we were having some trouble. We got it worked out though. So, you know me, I'm Todd. I got our guest Chad Fuller, and I've got Stephen Self here with us.
And we are
Stephen,
and say had a little tech bunch of old
hang on a minute. I got some echoing going on here.
I heard a little feedback there.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it straightened out here in just a second. So, Stephen and I have done podcasts before. We got Chad on here. Chad, I'm gonna give you a minute. I want you to introduce yourself, and guys, if you're not talking, mute your microphone so that we don't have ambient noise in the background and stuff, causing problems. So I'm going to mute mine. I'm going to let Chad introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've done, and let's go from there.
Okay. Well, my name is Chad Fuller. I'm an attorney here in South Carolina, practicing for roughly about 20 years now. Started practicing primarily criminal law in Charleston, South Carolina, handling murder cases, college kids pissing in public from College of Charleston, stuff like that. I was and still am an advocate motorcyclist. I'm very avid in that, very involved in that. That's my primary business practice. I ended up leaving that firm to work with a law firm out of Virginia. I became a partner in that firm. It was called Tom McGrath Motorcycle Law Group. We covered West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia at that point in time. Advocating for injured motorcyclists and doing some criminal defense in relation to that, but primarily civil litigation. About 4 years ago, started my own practice with my wife, who's also an attorney, doing the same thing, but restricting it just primarily to South Carolina. Once we had a couple girls born, and that definitely changed the dichotomy of our family, and traveling all that geographic area definitely made me an absentee father. And I think it was incumbent upon me to maybe make it to where, I could be wherever I needed to be within a couple hours. In doing that, I became the public relations officer for a group called A-Beta South Carolina. And if you guys aren't familiar with A-Beta South Carolina, A-Beta is actually a nationwide organization. It's kind of like the NRA for motorcycle rights. So in that capacity, I acted as their public relations officer, acted as their lawyer, did a bunch of different things. Drafting legislation, getting legislation passed, advocating for motorcycle rights. I think one of the biggest things, starting out was, obviously the Myrtle Beach helmet law case. We took that to the Supreme Court of South Carolina and got it a unanimous decision on that. And then
Hey, tell us about that in detail, because I thought that was a very interesting story. And the really interesting part of it is I watched it on a YouTube documentary. And before you and I ever talked, so I thought.
Did you watch? Okay, so I want to ask you a question. Was that the White Bike Week versus Black Bike Week one? Because I was on that one too.
That is the one.
Okay, yeah, you'll see me in that. I was a lot younger and maybe a little bit more prettier back then, maybe a little skinnier too. But so what happened in relation to that particular case was the city of Myrtle Beach had been a destination for a long period of time for motorcyclists to come in and enjoy that area. There's, as it relates to Black Bike Week versus White Bike Week, there is definitely a dichotomy of North Myrtle Beach versus, Myrtle Beach proper. What Myrtle Beach did in its infinite wisdom was it decided it was going to pass a series of ordinances that more or less outlawed or got rid of motorcycling as we know it in South Carolina. Primarily, the main method and modus operandi they used was talking about a helmet law, and they call it a helmet ordinance. And that ordinance was, if you came within the jurisdictional limits in the city of Myrtle Beach, you had to wear a approved DOT or Snell helmet within those city limits. However, South Carolina uh, currently and still does have a helmet law. A lot of people think we don't have a helmet law in South Carolina. However, we do. If you're over the age of 21, it's your choice to wear a helmet. If you're under the age of 21, you have to wear a helmet. So our argument was that the city ordinance was preempted by state law because the state law governs in contradiction to the city law. A city can't speak on something that there's a state doctrine on, which has some parallels to this case, and that we're dealing with in this matter that we're dealing with, and we'll certainly get into it later. But what we did was we actually organized a protest ride. I got my own ticket; it's framed on my wall, riding my motorcycle. And if anybody comes into my law office, you'll be able to see that. It's got lightning striking helmets and blowing them up with my ticket framed right on it. But we took over 100 and some odd clients to the Supreme Court of South Carolina on original jurisdiction under that theory of preemption. It was overturned unanimously by the court. They had to return all the fines that they had collected in relation to that particular ordinance. And if I, recall correctly, I think they actually had to pay a little bit of interest and court costs and stuff like that. But we did that pro bono. We did that for free. And we did not charge anybody on that. I was working with Tom at that point in time, and that was one of those things that he was the one that, if you actually look at the Supreme Court arguments, that was one of my mentors and brought me up and teaching me the legislative process moving forward.
Hey, that's a good deal. Stephen, you got a question for him?
I don't got nothing in relation to the motorcycle law. I've been riding my whole life, never thought much about wearing a helmet except on base. But I like to know how you come into about being a property attorney here in South Carolina. That's what I'm kind of interested in.
Yeah, no, that's a very good and valid question. From that standpoint, the way that happened is, I got property years ago, probably 15, 16, 17 years ago. I didn't write that chronology timeline down, in Lodge, South Carolina. I'm originally from Gilbert, South Carolina. So I've heard a lot of people tell me to move back where I'm from. Well, guess what? I'm right from here. So that's one of the things that I would like to correct, that particular narrative. And I've been an avid outdoorsman. I'm sure if you look behind me, you'll see there's animals and stuff all over my wall. My kids call it, room of death and whatnot. But
Hey, I got a question about that one. That one. It's right over your shoulder right there. Looks like it might be a snake skin. Is that what it is?
Yeah, there's a rattlesnake skin that was given to me by a guy in Texas.
Stephen's a bit of a snake expert.
Yeah, eradication.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, that is a rattlesnake. I'm surprised your camera's good enough to pick that up. But anyway, so going to it was, I've hunted that property for a long time. My primary way of hunting is bow hunting, archery hunting. The bear you see behind me I killed it with a bow and arrow. The elk, and there's actually several elk in my house, all bow and arrow and stuff like that. Honestly, didn't have any problems with dog hunting for a while. I actually want to make sure everybody understands this. I'm a dog hunting supporter. I don't want to see it go away. I just want to see it not become a nuisance issue, which is what has happened. And that's how I came into this. For me, trying to hunt with a bow and arrow, I had the same groups of people that would be running over me constantly. And that's only started out in the last, I'd say, 5 to 8 years. And that started being an issue. And then me being an attorney, other people started reaching out to me and wanting to, figure out what their legal causes of action were. I've also worked with DNR, like, hey, how can we fix this? How can we come to an amicable resolution? And it got to the point where, and we'll get into this a little bit later, that, there's civil causes of action and there's criminal causes of action. And a lot of what's going on with these SCDNR regulations or proposals, they're not even going to be regulations, they're just proposals, is relating to the criminal side, but there's a civil side. And so on December 30th, I believe, of last year, myself and a couple of like-minded landowners said, hey, let's just form an organization that, can maybe address some of our collective concerns. And essentially, I created that organization with those like-minded individuals, off the same basis that we did in ABATE. I've written legislation like H3231, the red light bill, started, with Nikki Haley being the governor and getting some of that stuff passed. And, I just took that same model from what we were doing on the motorcycle rights side to the property protection side. But at the same time, both sides, we're working to a same common goal. And that's what we'll make sure everybody understands, is that our organization is not against dog hunting. And it's a matter of, and thank you for giving me the platform and the forum to talk to you guys about this, because I think that narrative has to be corrected. If I will tell you right now, for a fact, if anybody says that they want dog hunting outlawed in South Carolina, I will step down effective immediately right now. But we do have to address some of the issues surrounding dog hunting as it pertains to South Carolina.
I got you. I don't speak for dog hunters in general. I'm just speaking for myself, and I want to make that clear. But I certainly understand where you're coming from. I've read through your bullet points and your page and looked at your outlines, and everything makes a lot of sense to me. The only thing that really stands out is, dogs trespassing. I don't mind legislation. I don't mind restrictions. I just don't want to restrict the ones doing wrong to the point that it affects us doing right. And when you start writing legislation, it don't take but one or two words, and for long you don't have anything. How do we go about creating some type of common goal, common collective, so that we weed out the bad, but keep the good? That's what we need to achieve. And I don't know what the steps forward is for that. I know my club, you don't hunt on my club unless you can stop your dogs, but I'm fortunate enough to have 360 degrees of roads around my property that we can stop our hound. And I'm the worst there is as far as stopping dogs, as far as training them, and I can stop mine, so I know anybody can. I think we have a disconnect with landowners. My landowners beside me are just as friendly as can be, but we have a disconnect throughout our community that dogs are hurting the property. And I get it that the dogs aren't hurting your property, but it is your property and you have a right to not be encroached upon. I understand that completely. So how do we go forward creating some type of legislation that does not interfere with those of us doing the right thing? That's the question for you and your association.
Okay, so great points. Part of it is actually the process that's taking place right now. We met with DNR on several occurrences. Actually, Father's Day weekend, we met with, I'm not going to name any particular organization, but we met with a certain dog hunting organization, and wanted to have that same discourse. DNR officers were there to, I wouldn't say mediate, but to facilitate. And we polled our membership like, hey, here are some points that we want to have happen, or some ideas. And then that particular organization said they were going to do the same thing. To this point in time, it's been an echo chamber. I talked to that organization, the testimony in Florence last week. And to date, they have not. We're willing to provide ours. They don't want to provide theirs. They say it's not right for it. That's certainly their prerogative. That it is what it is. It seems like that meeting was a waste of time, in my opinion. But hopefully that still opened up the course of dialogue. DNR, however, has stepped in as a result of the public board meeting that happened. I believe it was back in June, and I'm not going to quote specific dates, but it's all out there. It's actually posted on Army of Orange. I think some videos that I'm tagged in are on that specific one. That were outlining in that particular meeting. The SCDNR board requested their resources, Jake and Trail et al., to reach out and have public stakeholder meetings, which is what is transpiring right now. Actually, I sent, if you want to put it as Exhibit B, earlier today, some of that documentation
I'll
from
pull that up in
that
just a minute.
that
Chad.
yeah from that meeting, and I'll just try and summarize it and put it in a Cliff's Notes version. And I've got it right here in front of me, is where we're going to have, you know, these stakeholder meetings, and I'm more or less paraphrasing what SCDNR has had. And obviously the first one's in Florence, you know, next one's tomorrow in Orangeburg. We've got another one on Monday, August 10th, Hampton Street Auditorium, 494 Hampton Street, Walterboro. And it's a chance for the public to come out and speak publicly. But additionally, and I want everybody to know this too, you have an online forum. So even if you don't feel comfortable public speaking or anything along those lines, there's still a way for you to go. It's completely, you know, anonymous. So you can speak your heart, speak your truth, and not have to worry about, you know, what the other side might say, and have to, you know, because I've seen it from both sides, landowners and property, protectors, you know, wanting to say things and worried about a pushback from the dog hunting community, but dog hunting community probably doesn't want that either. So there's a way for you to voice your opinion. And I think that's important, for us all to get together. And that's what we're doing today, is having this forum where I want to hear from dog hunters, and educate myself as well, and educate my organization. And that's what DNR is trying to do. And from that standpoint, the way I would put it is, imagine an hourglass where it starts at the top and it funnels down and then funnels back out. So right now we're at the top of that funnel. According to them, and I've already, you know, given this, and feel free to publish it. You know, we're doing these meetings. They're going to have break-off meetings where they're only select a handful of stakeholders from each one. There's going to be one meeting for, the dog hunting organizations. There's going to be one meeting for the property organizations, and there's going to be essentially a mediation there. And then they're going to funnel it back out for whatever recommendations they give to the legislature. Once again, DNR has no control over what happens. They cannot change these laws, period. So all this is an information gathering process and a funneling back out process. And then it goes to the legislature. And remember, we got elections in November. We don't even know who our legislators are going to be in totality of the circumstances. So these are going to be recommendations.
What
Let
recommendation?
me, let me jump in here just a minute, fellas. We got somebody that wants to ask a question. First of all, you guys got the chat line open. I can actually send messages to everybody here. I've sent y'all a couple of messages. Did you see them? Not on YouTube. I'm talking about in our group here. I sent you, please keep your mic muted until you're ready to speak, and I'm going to let Chafford ask the question next. Can y'all see that? There's a thing on your screen where you're at to open the chat, and I think it's in the bottom right corner, chat with participants. It's a little chat box. Anyway, I've got Chafford Tool. Did I pronounce your name right? I'm going to let him ask his question. And then we've got some people in the comment section online that have said some things that we're going to talk about. And then I'm going to let you get back in with it, okay? So let me let Chafford go.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me on here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Thank y'all for having me on here. Yeah, my main question and concern is, are we going to be able to get together as the two organizations, the two associations, and be able to sit down and discuss and come to a mediation? Is my greatest concern with all this. It seems like the bad dog hunters, are determined and set in their ways, and some of the property owners are determined and absolutely set in their ways. And that's my main concern is, are we going to be able to come to an agreement? And that's basically what I wanted to talk about the most.
Oh, you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay, so I don't
Mhm.
have a magic 8 ball that's going to give me the right answer. I wish I did. I wouldn't be a lawyer. I'd probably go play the lottery to give me all the right answers. I will tell you from our organization standpoint, we have tried. I gave up an entire day on Father's Day weekend to go meet with hunting organizations, with also some of the property owners and stakeholders there. As I alluded to previously, we hoped that meeting would bear fruit. It has not. um, DNR is kind of forcing all of our hands right now to come to that same type of mediation, which I think is good. I would rather, and once again, I will and won't make sure everybody knows dog hunting does not need to go away. I dog hunt on my property, not for deer. I'm actually got, and if you don't mind me giving a shout out, Put Up or Shut Up, I'll be on their podcast and in the near coming future, giving away some stuff. But I've also invited them to come and coon hunt on my property. I also, if you look on my Facebook page, you'll see where I run dogs for pigs on my property, and we kill them with knives. I've seen it done properly. They don't get off of that property line. I got 1,000 acres right there in Lodge. They don't get off that property. They do it the right way. So I know it's possible. As a matter of fact, this bear you see right behind me in New Mexico, I killed that with a bow and arrow running dogs. Never got off the property owner. So I am not somebody that's opposed to it. And, I don't deer dog hunt. That is just not my preferred modus operandi. It has caused me problems as a property owner and has caused our membership, problems. But there's a way to get to a solution, and any mediation is what I would say is what it's probably going to end up being. My membership is not going to be happy with what they get, and the dog hunting organizations are not going to be happy with what they get. But that's the earmark of a good middle line. I don't want to over legislate. I am against over legislating things. But at the same time, the standard quo is not working. So most of the dog hunters, good guys, how do we get rid of the bad apples? And we need the guys like you asking these questions and saying, hey, here's how, what's the best way to catch a fox? Hire another fox. So the guys that are there is y'all are going to give us the information to get rid of the bad apples, because ultimately I don't want to see it go away. But the bad apples will make it go away if it continues to permeate and create nuisances.
Hey guys, let me read some stuff from the comments, okay? They're starting to build up. Mormon Woody says, dump the box. I told people that if they want to come on screen and participate, I'll send them a link later to stick in here. Michael Brady says, thanks for getting back on topic. I think we were leading in with the motorcycle thing and we didn't quite get to the dog hunting fast enough. Timothy Beck, Chad's property is so overrun with hounds, it's unsafe for Chad and his kids. How can he in good conscience bring clients and disabled veterans and amputees there to hunt? Michael Brady, heavy fines and criminal prosecution. Michael King, those same fines need to apply to every stray dog that's on somebody's property. Michael, don't have a last name. Not if dog hunters keep denying how bad. Hold on a minute, Grandpa lost his place. Not if dog hunters keep denying how bad the problem is with tailgate dumping on a daily and weekly basis in the most rural dog areas. We're having the conversation here, Michael. That's why we're doing this. General Assembly asked DNR to hold these public stakeholder meetings. This is Timothy Beck again. And electronic surveys, or did DNR take it upon themselves to gather input and make an issue for them to address? Jamie, we need to invite him on a dog hunt so he can really see what we do. So Chad, you got an invitation. Chad, you guys can't see anybody but me right now that's talking, but Chad just gave a thumbs up. I think he's going to come back and talk to you, Jamie.
I'm your Huckleberry.
He said he's your Huckleberry. Myers said, so essentially you're responsible for starting this entire situation. You want to address that one?
Okay, so that's a fair question. No, I'm not essential in starting this entire, quagmire. It's something that has been there for a while. I had clients contacting me, and I'd sent you some stuff, especially the Allen v. Dickerson case. I'd also sent you the letter of DV Timber LLC, where it was going to be. Remember, you've got criminal law and you've got civil law. And so whether DNR enforces the criminal law side of things, you got civil law, because we can still sue in South Carolina under a common pleas or whatever else situation, which unfortunately has, created, and me personally, I haven't done it, but there's a possibility that might be coming in the near future, depending on how this all plays out. That has gotten where these timber tracts are no longer leasing to dog hunting companies because of some of the issues that have happened. And so my part and the Property Protection Alliance too is to try to come to a reasonable and equitable solution to where we're not getting rid of dog hunting, period. We don't want to make it to become like a civil litigation situation where we're not doing it just on the criminal side. So if there's a way to take care of it from the legislative and executive branch and just get rid of the, like we said, the bad apples, and what we call that in law is recidivists, that would be where we're coming from. So no, it was actually a bunch of people that funneled into a, if you want to call it like a pimple that needed to be popped, yeah, that's it. But the people that actually kept causing the problems, I would put them as the nexus or your, event horizon for this particular period.
Real quick on that, Todd. I got a background, and I believe DNR has identified majority of these recidivists, but the fines were so minimal that they continue to happen. And then those of us that are trying to do right are getting punished, not now, but in the near future, possible litigation and legislation for their shortcomings. When you have repeat offenders over and over and over, because the fine isn't but $12 or $50 or whatever the case is, there's some type of formant of a habit forming, I should say. And this is what needs to happen, in my opinion, is I don't want nobody to be fined or punished, but I also don't want to lose my privileges for what you've done. So what is your organization proposing as far as what needs to happen?
Well, okay. So in relation to that, oh, the screen's going all kinds of crazy right now. So I'm just going to keep going and talking about what we're dealing with. But no, so that is still a very nebulous process. All we're trying to do is getting rid of the nuisance dogs. Mistakes do happen. You're absolutely right. Mistakes happen. If this was only a once every other, occurrence, I would not have a problem. We would not be here. I don't think most of the guys that I represent and gals that I represent would be here. It's the recidivists that continue to have it happen. There's one thing to have a mistake. There's another thing when it's a common course of conduct. That becomes a habit. Look at it from a speeding perspective. All of us probably speed. And then law enforcement triggers it when it's like too much speeding. Okay. Like, all right, maybe you get 5 miles an hour over, 10 miles an hour. They have every right to pull you 1 mile an hour over. But when it becomes too excessive, that's when they do it. And that's kind of where we're at. It's like, all right, what point is it excessive? And what I will tell you is we had started doing some dogs at large stuff, just trying to get, some of the bad apples out. That turned out to be a conflict with Alan Wilson and the Attorney General. He gave another opinion, which is an advisory opinion, which essentially took the handcuffs off of the DNR agents that were enforcing those marginal fees to their hands. They're now, it's the law that's there, especially everybody wants to trigger the Renegade Act. The issue with the Renegade Act is, as its current form states, it doesn't really give DNR the tools or resources to prosecute the renegades, because they're acting in an improper fashion. So now we're trying to figure out, all right, not to change complete law, but massage or amend the law. And it might be the old adage of boiling a frog slowly. Hey, maybe we make one little change over here, or one little tweak there, see if it fixes something, and if not, come back to it. We certainly do not want to go all the way over. I don't want PETA coming into this, organization, my organization or your organization, and start talking about the mishandling or treatment of dogs. That is not something that I want, period. It needs to be the proper stakeholders that are involved in this. And go from there.
Let me hop in here a little bit with some stuff from the comments. Thank you so much for that, Chad. We got one person that says, we found who the bad apples is, and I said, who's the bad apple? The reply was, anybody who speaks about private property rights. This line of thought will just never go away, so dog hunting eventually will, unfortunately. We got another comment from Michael Floyd. How can we stop the landowners and still hunters from shooting the dogs? I told him we were going to talk about that later in the thing. You're going to talk about it as a lawyer and about the problem, the penalties for that, criminal and civil. Johnny doesn't have an alpha system that have geofencing capabilities. Chad's going to give away some alpha equipment. So you might want to stick around there, Johnny. But he says, does it work? Stephen, you can answer that question better, I think. Let me get this one more comment, and then I'm going to let you guys have it back. We already have the Renegade Hunter Law, and this is why I interrupted you when I did, because you were talking about the Renegade Hunter Law. Is it being enforced? How many tickets were written in the past year? And one of the other comments was, we already have laws on the books. Let's enforce those laws. And those are all good points.
All right. On the alpha real quick, Todd, the alpha works, but it requires you to use it. No tool is worth anything if you don't use it properly. It took me a while to learn how to actually train a dog to stop. If you can get ahead of your dog, you teach him properly, you can stop any dog. The Alabama Dog Hunters Association put out a video a few years ago. It's a 3-day process. They whistle break and tone break their dogs, and they show the deer across the road, maybe 200 yards from them, and they're not there, and they bring every dog to them. It is possible. Where I think we have a shortcoming is where property lines dissect through wooded areas instead of road lines. How do you keep dogs on your property when your property line is not divided by a road or a fire lane? These dogs don't recall like bird dogs. They don't recall like a lab. They don't go straight out and straight back. So what is the fixed action for that? I don't know. But to answer your question, the alpha systems in the hands of the right person and trained can stop a dog on a dime, no problem. I've seen dogs sight chasing deer with the tone of a button. He stops and comes to the truck. And when he gets there, he's happy to see you. It doesn't affect the dog in any way if it's done properly. Back to you there, Chad.
Hang on just a minute. Hold on just a minute, fellas. Why do so many dog hunters dodge the question on why they can't stop the dogs? That's Tyler Pearson. Tyler, were you just watching what Stephen said? I think you can rewind it. Rewind it and listen to what Stephen literally just told you. He just literally answered that question. So if you're still asking that question, put it in the comments again. But I feel like that you may have been not listening. Another guy here says, Chad, would you help us dog men gain access to more public land?
Yeah, honestly, that's one thing I want to say is that came up, and that's where I think some of this is really good about from the DNR standpoint. Is I heard some really good positions at the Florence meeting that I think are very valid from the dogman side. I mean, y'all have every right to use state ganglands like we do. Now that's going to be up to SCDNR. But I think that would certainly curtail some of the pressure that's put on us as private property owners. I think that's another solution, and that's what this conversation is about. And I want to make sure everybody understands PPA is not against dog hunting. It's about finding solutions to the problems that are there. And I think that is a potential solution. that is there. Another one that I was talking with an attorney that does, I don't want to name any names because I don't have their permission to do so. Making it mandatory to use GPS collars. Not everybody uses GPS collars. I think that could be, one thing that could, be a step in the right direction. Another thing is reaching out to Garmin or maybe even Hunt on X to maybe have automatic geofencing to where it makes it easier for the dog owners to hunt their property and keep it off. Like I said, I think if this is just like a every once and then again occurrence, that's not going to be an issue. And, I want to circle back if you don't mind. When it comes to us, we've got the wide gamut of my organization that says it could be this way or it could be that way. Some people talk about Georgia law, things like that. For me personally, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the organization, I think you treat it similar to like an assault and battery third, to where it's the property owner that needs to prosecute it. It's not DNR that comes out and prosecutes the case. It'd be the property owner, because at that point in time, the property owner and the landowner can deal with each other. And you figure out who the recidivists are. And just like prosecuting those cases, you can move dismiss for lack of prosecution if the property owner isn't willing to press charges. So I think that's a possibility too. There's no bright line solution to this, but that's why we're having this conversation right now.
All right, I got a couple more comments. It seems like all I'm doing is reading comments tonight, fellas. Coleman Roberts, I can stop 10 head with my Garmin. As a houndsman, I pride myself on I guess it's on the way he handles. I got mine to stop, toned, collar, and holler. Somebody here says, Timothy Beckham, post from April 7th says, take away the land, the problem goes away. I'm assuming that's addressed at Chad. I'm going to let you figure out what that's about. And he said one more thing, and I want to read that real quick, if I can get my screen to scroll back up there. You're getting a lot of dog hunters by going to the timber companies and private landowners to pressure them to not allow dog hunting on their property. And another comment just popped up. Nothing beats a well-trained hound, but no electronic collars. Lost the message was pulled back. I don't know what it said. I didn't finish reading it. You want to address the pressuring the people to not let people dog hunt on their property, and the April 7th says take away the land, the problem goes away. You want to address those?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll make clear what was going on in relation to that. And I think it was communicated the wrong way, admittedly. That at that particular point in time, we were talking about what I had sent to you previously with, the DV Timber Company, everything else like that. We're trying to put a shot across the bow. Unfortunately, the particular person that posted that is no longer going to be part of our social media platform because I think it hit the wrong mark in relation to what we were trying to get across. So from that standpoint, that I think it's a matter of we're trying to say if it doesn't go the right way, if we don't come to some type of resolution, the civil side will come into play and the property will go away, which is absolutely accurate. I think it just could have been articulated in a better fashion. And that's why we don't want to see this go away. And that's our organization is just to get rid of the nuisance dog hunting. And that's, so like I said, it's a mischaracterization, but it is something that we have to take ownership of. And I will certainly do that on behalf of the organization. But we have made steps to make sure that the information we put out from this point forward is a little bit more clear in the direction of what we're talking about.
I appreciate that. There's several people commenting now saying that they work with their dogs and they can stop 10 or 12 head with their Garmin. So that's a promising thing. I'm not running that many dogs anymore. I used to have 15, but I'm only running 2 or 3 at a time now, and I can usually keep a handle on them. Let's see here. The comment's still up, so the PPA still believes it. Chad, and I'm gonna let you hold on that. I want to read something else here. I really hope, somebody just said, what about the nuisance? I really hope they don't get more dates on W&A lands. I live in the Francis Marion, and it's crazy here those days. You have to watch because you have those guys standing in the middle of the highway. Stephen, I'm gonna let you take that, and then I'm gonna let Chad respond to it.
All right. I'm a proponent of the national forest, and what the commenter doesn't understand is if there's more days, we wouldn't be jam packed in there on those few days they give us. I agree. The roadway situations can be an issue. It can be dangerous. Not everybody has the marksmanship that some of us might have. But that is a solution to get it. Unfortunately, a lot of our properties and leases are being bought up by out-of-state people, and it's forcing us and pushing us. It's driving the cost of timber property up. It's driving the cost of private leasing up, and it's pushing a lot of people out into the nuisance arena, is what I would say. And there's a reason they're nuisances, because a lot of the clubs don't want them either. And I ain't being mean and trying to say that, but it's somebody's had issues with DNR. They've broken rules, whatever the case is, and they're no longer allowed on clubs. Therefore, they become a nuisance for other people. But if DNR was to open up the national forest for more days, I think you would alleviate a lot of the mass congestion they see on the few days they give us. Go ahead, Chad.
I'm not opposed to that. That is not, that is nothing that I think we would ever be opposed to. I don't see any way that we can be, because we are here for private property rights. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you guys have paid for that land just like anybody else has as a taxpayer. You should have equal access to it. If you go back to, and I know some people are pissed off about the motorcycle stuff, but if you go back and read H3231 that I wrote about equal access for everything else like that, that could give you a little bit of a blueprint. And that particular bill, granted, it was about motorcyclists, but it was, parking garages in Charleston, South Carolina, that were keeping us as motorcyclists out of parking garages that were public, that paid for by our tax dollars. We got the law changed, and now motorcycles are allowed to park in those parking garages. So there is a blueprint for that.
Let me piggyback on the hunting the right-of-way roads. What is your organization proposing on that? Because I know almost any timber company lease I see in the low country has some type of public access that borders their property. And I'm not necessarily opposed to shooting on it. My members tend to hold their guns when we're out there anyway, and we're just trying to stop our hounds. But what is your organization proposing as far as roadway hunting?
Roadway hunting is something that we're concerned about in relation as it pertains to, public safety. We're not against it per se, but it needs to be restricted to a certain manner. I mean, you can't block the road. You need to be over the white line, or some people call it the fog line, things of that matter. I will tell you that, we filed some Freedom of Information Act requests in relation to that to see if there's really an issue with it, because once again, that's going to be where we're at. Is it going to be a public policy issue or not? And the data that we really need to digest and metabolize and move forward on that, I don't think is necessarily out there. But from just a logical standpoint, don't be shooting across the road, but hopefully most people are smart enough to do, not do that. However, I would not say that we have enough information, period, to digest that, but it is something that is definitely going to be addressed in the future. And I think that is going to be more for the legislature to address, especially under Section 56 of the Uniform Traffic Code, rather than going through the hunting code. So that's what I kind of foresee happening.
Hey, Chad, I got a couple of things here. One, I did some Freedom of Information Act requests myself on road hunting. There's some places where that I can hunt from the road, and it's safe to do so because there's nothing there but trees. But there's a lot of places where it's not safe to do that. And you can, in my situation, as long as I control the land on both sides of the road, I can do it. And I control the land on both sides of the road, so it's not a problem. But there are some situations where you're sitting there on the road and you're looking down the road and all you see is houses. You should still be able to be out there. I'm not necessarily saying you should be holding a gun, but well, I'm going to say there's no reason you couldn't hold a gun. I'm going to say you probably shouldn't be shooting unless your life's in danger. Does that make sense? So I've got a lawyer question here from the comments. Daniel Cox says, I thought a law was just passed that you had to be 10 yards in the woods.
Not to my knowledge. And I mean, one thing I want to make sure everyone understands is, just because I'm a lawyer doesn't mean I know all law. That's 100% true. It's a lot like doctors. You got cardiologists, you got neurosurgeons, so in this particular area, I think I'm well versed, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I know absolutely everything. But I'm telling you, with all my research that I've done, I have not heard anything about 10 yards. And sometimes it might be, I guess I should preface this. I'm only an attorney in South Carolina. You probably have viewers that are in other states that, might have different laws. I can't speak to those states.
Todd, you got some technical difficulties with your mic there, buddy.
You better learn sign language.
While he tries to figure it out, I wanted to speak on that real quick. How many, if you know of any, accidents have occurred from hunting on the side of the road? Has there been vehicle shot that I'm not aware of? Has there been run over? While we're waiting on him. And also, I got a text from a friend. If you'll text me your message, I'll go ahead and put it out. But I don't know about how to make comments on YouTube, buddy. Go ahead, Chad.
Okay, so no, so that's another thing that we'll probably end up foiling is going to be that particular situation. For me as so I can't answer it from a certain perspective, and I did testify as to this at the SCDNR board. I've had a couple clients, two specifically, that hit deer dogs on motorcycles and had to be life flighted out with major catastrophic bodily injuries. From that perspective, I'll tell you what happened, and we had to sign NDAs, so I'm gonna have to keep this very vague. We were able to get the license plate number of the deer dog truck, and then trace that back to the homeowner's policy.
Yes.
All right, we hear you. So it traced that back because those deer dogs, and I think this is another thing that people need to understand. It's not just deer dogs, it's really every dog situation, domestic or otherwise. We've done the same thing with bulls or horses. If it's allowed to be on a public roadway, you're strictly held liable from that standpoint, especially if it's a domesticated animal, which no one's going to argue a dog is not a domesticated animal. I mean, you own these dogs. It's different than a coyote. It's different than a bobcat. So from that perspective, you are vicariously liable from a civil context, not a criminal. And that's where I think a lot of people need to understand that. And we'll probably get into it a little bit later. That civil context is you're responsible. So what we did in those contexts is we actually did go against the individuals with that were running the dogs on the road, because those motorcyclists lost their enjoyment of life and everything else. As to entire state statistics, some of this stuff has not been provided yet, and it's going to take some time before it gets provided. But I will promise you this, and I will guarantee you this: we will publish everything to Army of Orange and every other avenue that we can, so that way you guys know, and you got the same information that we have.
Speaking on that, I agree. Your hunting animal or your private animal is an extension of yourself, so you're responsible. I 100% agree with that. Do you think going forward that hunting club registries with the state of South Carolina might be a way of going, so that maybe speed limits get posted around those areas, so we meet a compromise, to lower your speed to 35? Because now I don't want you hitting my dog more than you want to hit my dog. Would that be something? I mean, majority of us dog hunters, we love our animals. We don't want them on a highway. However, if there is those cases where GPS is quit or for some
Mhm.
reason something happens and the dog ends up on a highway and somebody might, get hurt, would it be reasonable to ask that we lower the speed limits around registered hunting property? Because it's possible we could register that property to slow down on those areas. Most hunting areas aren't but a mile or two wide of public road. So, I mean, it's not like it defeats your GPS purpose of beating the timeline to get to your going location by slowing down a few minutes for us. I'm just saying, if we're going to meet in the middle, that might be a decent compromise. Hitting a dog at 35 is a lot better than hitting him at 65, and at 35, you have more of a time to react if a dog was to enter the roadway. Go ahead, Chad.
Dude, I honestly, that's why stuff like that, proposals like that are exactly why these conversations are happening. I would be in full support of that, registering the property and then being able to have, signs out to slow it down. That would certainly be a compelling public policy argument. And there is no way I think anybody would be beyond that, because once again, we don't want you guys to lose what you got. And if there's a way to make it safer, that's what we're here to do. We're also here to make it to where it's not a nuisance, and that would certainly curtail the nuisance portion of it. My only concern on that would be, all right, what is it going to be as far as, do you have to have DOT get involved or SEDNR and post the signs or whatever else? But those are questions that we're going to have to address in the legislature and in the enforcement of any potentially proposed legislation if it comes, or any regulations from SEDNR. But yeah, I think that's a great move.
I've got one more question if I can ask.
Go ahead.
What, before I get off of here and just sit back and listen, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts and your organization's thoughts on some kind of right to retrieve law? I myself am an avid coon hunter. I grew up deer hunting with dogs. My dad had 40, 50 head of dogs all my childhood. I've had deer dogs of my own. I'm in 100% agreement with deer hunting with dogs. I just wanted to give a little background in my standpoint. But also from a coon hunter standpoint, which a right to retrieve law affects any kind of dog hunting. When you free cast a dog, well, what are your thoughts and your organization's thoughts on legalizing some kind of way for us to get our dogs back if they do happen to get on somebody else's property?
So that's an excellent question. What I would have to say is we would be opposed to that, because it goes to the very core and marrow of what our organization stands for. You cannot make it to where somebody else could come on your property. If you think of it this way, think of it from like an eminent domain standpoint. So if the federal government or state government was going to, build on your property, they would have to do an assessment before that taking would take place. I believe there are ways where maybe DNR could be utilized about getting dogs off of property, but to make it mandated that somebody else can come on my property, that opens up a real big can of worms. Because what if you end up stepping in a stump, you end up breaking your leg or your ankle, and you're suing me at that point in time? You see what I'm saying? It still violates that particular contingency. So I don't see where we would be, in support of it. But I think there are things that can be done to make it easier to retrieve these dogs.
Okay, that I wasn't necessarily saying just go on a private owner's land and retrieve the dog. I'm saying we need to come up with steps and guidelines
Yes.
to go by, whether it be contact the landowner first, contact DNR, whatever we need to do.
Check.
But I think there should be something in writing that will allow us to go get our dog. I mean, I don't want to leave my dog treed for 5-6 hours behind your house. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to sit there and listen to it.
Oh yeah, well no, and I mean, and to be
That's my point. And some landowners will absolutely not let you go on their land to go get your dog. So what do you do then? You just sit there and wait until your dog might come back by the morning time. I mean, that's to me, that's causing more harm than me just running in there, grabbing my dog and coming back out, whether it be the landowner wants to go with me or a game board needs to escort me.
Yeah.
That's my point on it.
Well, so landowner going with you, absolutely, you're allowed to do that every time. Unfortunately, during like trapping season, my father and I have had to catch a couple dogs out of foot traps that we had set for coyotes. And we returned them immediately. The problem that I've had on my property, you come to it, you'll see I've got a little kennel there where I'll call the owners and they can retrieve their dogs, with expediency. If I have to leave, that creates a problem. That's only come up a handful of times. But one of the things is that I do believe there needs to be a way to do it, but properly. And that's the same thing that we're dealing with these nuisance dogs coming on property that we're not supposed to be. Is like where is that middle ground where we can all come to a resolution from the dog hunting perspective and the property owner perspective. But yeah, I don't know what the exact solution is going to be to that question. And unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of lawyer answers, which means I don't know. It's going to be, we've got to fill this out and move forward. And in all honesty, the way I've done this, and like I said, I've been practicing law in South Carolina for almost 20 years. That's why they call it practice of law, not mastery of law. We are working towards getting to mastery, but to date, nobody's got it perfect. So we're going to have to work on that.
So we got a person in the comments, Michael. If we give the rogues our land, we can't keep the rogues off our land. If we give them access, we wind up creating a fiasco and a war, to be honest. Another person, Grayson Stone, I promise we don't want our dogs on your land no more than you do. Chad, how many times a year are you checked by DNR? I'm going to ask another question too. We're going to hit a few of these. One asked, how many acres do you think is adequate to dog hunt? And you know what I'm going to say on that one. Right to retrieve is just putting the burden on your dogs on somebody else. Arkansas and Virginia have a right to retrieve, by the way. It's not my burden to bear as far as you retrieving your dogs. Michael, you're right. It's not your burden to bear. It would also seem that if, let me say my statement real quick, because I haven't even said mine. If it's been my position for at least 12 years, probably more. We don't punish accidents. We don't punish mistakes. If you turn your dog loose and he gets across out of bounds on your neighbor's property, occasionally, and occasionally means maybe once a season to me. Might mean something different to you, but that's what it means to me. Because as soon as I say my dog will never do something, he's going to go never like he's nevered before. You know what I mean? But if you turn your dog out and he occasionally gets on your neighbor's property, that's an accident, and we shouldn't punish accidents. Somebody said maximum fines and all this other stuff. There's a time and place for that, but the first occurrence is not it, because it could be an accident. The dog could have gotten out of the kennel. The dog could have been taken by some of these animal rights activists that just, oh my God, Stephen, they're wearing Stephen's page out a lot of times. But there's a lot of reasons the dog could have wound up on your property, not because the owner was negligent or whatever. There's a lot of reasons, but a lot of reasons isn't going to happen every Saturday. So if every time you turn your dog out, it's on your neighbor's property, that's not an accident. That's a habit, and it's a bad habit, and it's something there should be consequences for. That's my position. It's been my position for 12 years. It's been my position since we started the Eastern Carolina Houndsman Alliance. That's the whole reason we started the Eastern Carolina Houndsman Alliance, was to rein in the bad apples. So so that's my point, and I'm going to kick it back to you guys. Chafford, if you want to say something else, let me read a couple more comments. Had a couple. The denial. Most of the arguments in Eastern NC are not the occasional incidents. It's weekly tailgate dumping. I agree totally that occasional dog crossing are not the issue. Michael, I agree with you too. What I just say, I'm not in denial. I'm telling you, me, 100% agree. How do we stop that bad habit? Well, the legislature can stop that bad habit. But the thing is, you don't want to punish innocent people. Tick that is the wrong mindset. We should not punish accidents. We shouldn't punish accidents. Do you think you should get a ticket every time you drive 56 and a 55? Your car is capable of reporting that information. If you drive a newer model car, it already keeps up with how fast you go and what the speed limit is where you're at. It could send a notification to the government and you get a ticket. It is possible. The technology's there. So do you feel like every time you drive 56 and a 55 that you should get a ticket? And one reason why I know the technology is there because I have a few vehicles and I get a report every week about the vehicles and how they were driven and such. Steven's over there smiling. You guys can't see him, but he knows what I'm talking about. Telematics is real. So, I mean, should you? You're saying that maximum fines all the time. Maybe we should do that. Chad's been talking about motorcycles. I'm going to talk about cars. Maybe you should get a ticket every time you run 56 and a 55, since you're a big stickler on laws. Anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. I'm not going to mute my microphone anymore, though. I'm going to try not to make any noise.
All right, I got a text from a guy that got a question for you, Chad.
All right.
Know what's your opinion on out-of-state hunting? He says, for one, the out-of-state dog hunters that overrun our little bit of government woods that we're allowed to hunt. So what he's talking about is early in the season, our season opens up before other states. When our national opens up and now they bombard with out-of-state hunting. So just to speak back to the national forest we talked about earlier, early in the season before like Florida and Georgia open, we get overrun by out-of-state hunting in those national forest areas. What would your standpoint, as far as the agency you're speaking for, have on that? How will we regulate that? Because if I ain't mistaken, we sold more out-of-state hunting license this year than in-state hunting license, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that was put out somewhere I saw. Go ahead.
Okay, so first off, for my organization, it would not affect us at all. We're just talking about our property rights. That's it, and getting rid of the nuisances. As it comes to out-of-state hunters, I understand that. In the area that I'm in Lodge, there's probably more Florida people than there are, regular, citizens. However, if they're doing everything right in the legal way, that's it. Whether DNR wants to raise the fines, or not raise fines, I should say, raise the license fees or something along those lines, that's up to DNR. I am definitely not going to speak against out-of-state hunters because we don't have any elk in South Carolina, and you can already look right behind me. There's plenty of elk, and I'm going to New Mexico to bow hunt for elk. I've been doing it for like 12 years. I stalk them in the woods and in the mountains. It's one of the most things. It's like hunting a giant turkey. It's just a beautiful, amazing thing. And so I would be a hypocrite to say to get rid of out-of-state hunting because when I'm doing the very same thing. But could it be massaged? Yeah. And hopefully DNR will listen to that too. There is no silver bullet to this solution, period.
I think what he's referring to more is we already tight for space. And if we're allowing, times two of the personnel to be into the state, which I'm fine with out-of-state hunting. All my dogs grew up in Florida. So my whole point is the more people, less space. It's all about numbers. And that's what he's alluding to is a lot of, he don't want to get rid of it. He wants to limit it. But a lot of the property local to him is being bought up by out-of-state hunters, thus driving the property costs. giving less place for our people or our residents to hunt, which forces us, not me in general, but people to hunt nuisance areas. It forces Mike over here to hunt his family's 5 acres because he can't go to national forest without 7,000 people being on top of him, and it's forced that his state dollars pay for. So that's kind of what he's referring to. He don't want to get rid of out of state, more like limit it somehow.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was referring to. Is I promise you, I pay way more when I go to New Mexico than somebody that's not there. And so sometimes maybe it might become like an elitist thing, which is not really what we really want either. But from a federal law standpoint, you got a full faith and credit doctrine. You've also got the interstate hunting license compact, which has some promulgations in that too. So maybe you can raise fines, or like I said, not fines, but almost feels like it's a fine to buy a license anymore. But that's what it is. So that might be a way to approach it. But yeah, I mean, I don't see any opposition to that from our standpoint, and certainly not from our membership standpoint, because that is, I mean, sorry to make a bad joke, but we had no dog in that fight.
Right, I'm tracking what you're saying, but I think the main thing he's saying is, it's congestive. It's just it becomes a problem. We're already talking about we're on private property when we're not supposed to be on, because we're limited to less access to our own property.
Yep. So I mean that is another thing for SCDNR. Can we open up more of those game lands? I mean, once again, that's not going to be something we're in opposition for at all, period. If it gives you houndsmen the opportunity to go out there and do what you do to love while not interfering or affecting our rights, have at it. What you do on your own time is up to you. We don't care. We want you to do it. We want you to enjoy your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We just want you to have that same respect for our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness as well.
So basically, everything we learned in kindergarten is what we need to look at. Respect your neighbor, keep your hands and feet to yourself, and don't take your neighbor's property. I mean, we all learned that in kindergarten. Am I right?
Well, evidently not everybody, but yeah, we're working on it.
I mean, I agree 100%. Keep your dogs on your own property. When I took over our lease that I have now, first thing I did was make the circle and meet all my neighbors and reassure them, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's my number. If you have an issue with my member, he won't be a member tomorrow. That's kind of how we did our things. And we got great neighbors, excellent neighbors. Matter of fact, they shoot a deer, they call me. A lot of misconception is this is dog hunter versus still hunter, and it's not. It's dog hunter against a versus property owner that has to come together, whether your property is for still hunting or cattle or raising goats. That's where this comes down to, is impeding and encroaching on private property. The word private is in the name. How do we keep dogs off of it? It's simple. Stay off, keep your dog off of it. If you can't handle 10 dogs, go down to 9. If you can't handle 9, go to 8. If you have that one stubborn dog, maybe you don't need that dog. It's hard to regulate, because if we ain't careful, we'll lose it. That's my whole perspective on this, is how do we keep everybody happy? And what's going to make, there's some landowners, like Mr. Chaffer was talking about, there's some landowners that will not come to the table. They will not talk to you. You can pull in their driveway. They don't want you there, period. They'll pass you on the road and rev their motor up and speed up as a way of, just shunning you, and how do we get those people to the table? Because those are the people we need to be discussing it with, the people who do not want to have open dialogue at all. Go ahead.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And actually, part of this from our organization's perspective, and I polled a lot of them yesterday. By the way, there's a watch party, I guess, somewhere in Smoke, South Carolina. Hey, Danny and y'all, everybody else. But what I wanted to tell you is, polling our members, we actually want more protections for you guys too. You get bigger penalties for taking a collar off of a dog. Shooting a dog is absolutely asinine and bullshit. And you do not hurt a dog. We do not stand for that. Do not want that at all. Mandatory jail time for somebody that does that, I have no problems for. Have no issues with that whatsoever. That's still your property. How can I advocate for protecting my property when I'm still going to try and kill your property? I understand the juxtaposition in that. And that's where these situations come down to is having those conversations. What has happened is there has been an acknowledgement from some part, and thank you guys for giving me this forum, the deer hunting community for dog driving, that says, hey, there is an issue here. And I'm saying, yeah, there's an issue here, and let's try and fix it. The first way you start trying to fix a problem is by acknowledging it and then working towards a solution. And you guys have more knowledge on this than I'll ever have because it's the way in life that you live. I've been, like I said, a couple times when it comes to dog driving, but I don't know enough. And, like I said, I've already, said, I'll go out with somebody. Y'all want to teach me? Teach me. And the more I can learn, the better I can be an advocate for your side and my side. But I have seen it done the right way. And let's just try to get to that middle ground and make sure everybody understands this. These SCDNR meetings are not getting rid of this. It's trying to come to some type of equitable solution. And if anybody has any ideas, we've gotten several that have been promulgated during this particular meeting. Let them be known. There's a lot of comments that are coming in. I see Todd reading them right now, and Stephen, you've had some great ones. And but at the same time, if somebody has some ideas and things like that to fix this problem, put them out front. That's what this process is for.
So Adam Moore writes, Stephen Self, I feel if you don't own an alpha system, you shouldn't be able to own a dog. Well, there's more than just alpha systems. Adam, there's a couple manufacturers that make GPS collars, so I wouldn't restrict it to a brand name, but you got a good point there. I lost the name, but one of the guys, and he's commented a lot. Okay, it's Michael Brady or Michael Bradley in talking about getting the landowner to the table. They don't have to come to the table. And he's 100% correct. When Chad and I talked off camera, he and I talked about that, as with anything, not just this topic, but anything in general, you have people that are rational, reasonable people that want to work towards a solution. And then you have people that absolutely don't want to discuss anything. It's their way, period. And there are people like that. There are people that will not come to the table. And Michael Bradley's correct. They don't have to. They're 40, 50, 100, 200,000, 10,000 acres, whatever it is. If they don't want you to be on it, don't be on it. It is theirs. It's theirs for a time.
He's
Go
right.
ahead.
He's 100% right. If they don't want you there, they don't even want to have an open dialogue. There's nothing you can do about it. He's 100% right on that. You just hope that you have good neighbors. One thing that I've seen throughout my life, and I'm not as old as some people, but I'm getting there.
What are you trying to say?
There's people that buy an acre of land beside a known dog property, or even in the middle of it sometimes, and gripe like they didn't know where they were moving. It's like moving into the ghetto and listening to gunshots and complaining about it. You know what that is. I'm not saying that we're right or wrong by crossing your property, but you didn't make the best judgment either by buying a piece of property right beside a main dog hunting area. I don't know what the solution is. You can't tell nobody they can't buy property, but there's some type of expectation that should come along with that property too. I'm not saying people shouldn't avoid it, but if you buy an acre of land and busted a property, I don't know. That's where I see a lot of these issues coming from. Like I said, I'm fortunate my club's surrounded by roads. I can access it. We'd have no houses on our side. So it makes me kind of, fortunate, like I said, but there's other places that don't have that. And how do you regulate that? A lot of these roads, the property, the timber company or leased area butts up right to their back door. And there's no road behind it. How do you regulate that and keep everybody happy? Now you tell me I can't hunt this 2,000 acres because a house sits right beside it. That's kind of reaching, I don't know.
Michael Brady says you're full of BS, Stephen. I think we've determined that he is not willing to discuss anything. So But you're full of BS. Just want to let you know. Go ahead.
Another example of that is even on the game lands, DNR has made a step in the right direction for the coon hunter, and they've opened up the game lands for 9 months out of the year. But just like the guy that commented that says he lives in the middle of Francis Marion, he lives in the middle of Francis Marion. What do you expect? DNR, they don't open the gates on the game land. So me behind my dog, I'm on foot. I can't keep up with a dog on foot. Nobody can. So there needs to be things done by DNR to give us better access to be able to cut our dogs off, to be able to get in front of the dogs and keep them off of people's land.
I also noticed.
Foot.
I also noticed that you said dog, Chafford. You didn't say dogs.
Dog,
You didn't dump 10 or
I'm not
15 loose and
talking
try and keep up with them on foot. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll turn multiple dogs loose coon hunting, or I'll hunt a single dog. But either way, you're not going to keep up with them on foot.
Yeah, I know the face that one.
You know, I mean, that's a good.
We having
Right.
technical difficulties.
No, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not talking over anybody. It kind of gets, it's kind of like being back in court, getting a clear transcript. I'm asking a director cross-examining question and somebody's trying to talk over me. It makes a unclear transcript. But no, Mr. Chafford's absolutely right. When it comes to that is, there do need to be more lines of access. And, I think, for some of these guys, when they're releasing on property, at least as it relates to me, I can't speak for all the property owners in my organization, is when they release on a certain track and area, they have no way to cut the dogs off. And so at that point in time, if you're using the made public road or thoroughway to do that without being able to cut it off, I think you bring up a very valid point. That it's maybe the clubs that do have it, hire a company or something like that to come in and cut another fire break. I don't know what the leases are or anything else like that for some of these dog clubs. That's going to have to be on a very subjective basis. But if there is a way to put standers on a line and cut them off before they get on somebody's property, that seems reasonable to me. It doesn't seem like it's that big an ask. And that would alleviate maybe some of the lease problems that are taking place because now those dogs are not coming onto somebody else's property. And so, I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I mean, if, for example, there's a big WMA right there in Utahville, South Carolina. We hunted a good bit. There are houses right around it. And there's roads to get all through it, but every gate on the place is locked. And I'm on foot. My dog gets a mile out there and she's in the middle of the block. If I set out to her, by the time I get to her, she's liable to be crossed into somebody else's place. And then I'm a mile in there on foot. I don't have a vehicle. So
come on now, you look a little bit like Forrest Gump. You could definitely get that. You can.
I'm 350 pounds. I can't keep up.
Come on, run, bro. Come on, run.
I will if I got to, but if they would just open the roadways up and we had better access to some of the public lands and stuff, it would alleviate a lot of problems, I think.
I'm in agreement too. Like I said, I have no problems with that. I'll talk with some other individuals. I have no problems with access to public lands whatsoever. That is not our fight. I think that was a very well brought up point at the Florence meeting. I don't know if you're going to be there at the Orangeburg meeting tomorrow. Anybody watching on this, I'll be there. Whether you like me or love me, just don't spit on me. And we'll figure it out because I'm here to fight for you guys as well as my membership and don't want to see any of this go away. It's a matter of taking away those already previously acknowledged bad apples, and what do we do to get rid of them? And then maybe get you guys a better, satisfaction on your side too. Then that comes, it's got to be a mutual conversation. And we also don't want people coming into this conversation that have no stakeholding relationship in it. Don't want PETA, don't want, anti-hunters, anything else like that. We're going to have to keep that stuff, kind of out. And we admittedly have to work on that on our side, fairly difficult, because they think that, they can come into the Property Protection Alliance, and, my enemy is my friend, I guess is what the Art of War says. However, we don't view it that way.
So we got some people here in the comments. How do you police another club, rogue or otherwise, if they don't hunt with you? And that's a really good question. It really is, because they're in the comments saying police your own. I got somebody asking me what my solution is, and I told them when we got to the solution part of the comments, we would talk about that. But that is a good question. How do you police your own if they don't hunt with you? Anybody got that one?
I would say the only thing we can do to do that is to get onto a forum like we're doing now and try to speak to them and hope they listen. But like I've said, you're going to have your people on both sides that are just set in their ways and will not agree to come to the table and try to come to an agreement. So I really don't know where this is going to go. I wish there were more people that could sit here and have a conversation like we're having and try to come up with remedies for the problems.
Well, I can tell you that the comment section, there's only one person commenting that does not seem to be willing to talk. There's one person that absolutely is not going to discuss anything. They're just in the comment section just to be there, I guess.
That must
But
be my fan.
Yeah, that's your fan, Stephen.
Yeah.
But everybody else in there is actually talking. One person, Mitchell King, they need to put roads around the private property in the national forest so you can keep your dogs off the property. And you guys can't see him, but Chafford is shaking his head yes. And he's right. They do need to be able to maneuver in there. So Stephen led on about somebody being old. I'm gonna tell y'all some stories about old. When I was a child, well, we used to ride the dinosaur down to, no, seriously. When I was a child, my dad hunted, and Chafford, they couldn't take vehicles into the woods where they hunted at, but they could take a bicycle. So these men had a bicycle with a rack on it, with a basket, and they didn't take 10 or 15 dogs. They carried a dog. And there was no such thing as tracking collars back then. There wasn't the beep beep collars, as people call them, and there wasn't GPS collars. There was listen for the dog and move. And they hunted on bicycles for several years. And then they got to where they could drive the trucks in there, and they started using trucks. But they used horns like a trumpet, like a ram's horn. And they would communicate with each other and with the dogs with the horns, and they rode bicycles. And now we've got way better technology. We've got GPS, we've got radios, we've got all kinds of stuff that we can use to keep in touch with each other. And we need to use it. We need to use it wisely.
I agree 100%. I can turn my dogs around for the most part, but Garmin's not 100% going to work every time. There's going to be times you lose communication with your dog. There's going to be times the collar malfunctions, which I run 2 collars on every one of my dogs in case of that. But like you said, I don't think that we should be punished for mistakes that are going to happen yes, if it becomes habitual, then yes, something should happen,
So I was asked,
depending on it.
sorry about that, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Mm.
I was asking the comment section what my solution is. Well, you know, it's just my opinion is all it is. But I told Stephen and Chad both, I've told them both previously that nearly 15 years ago, the Eastern Carolina Houndsman Alliance got together, sat down. We had a big committee. We had a state senator there. We had Wildlife Resource Commission. I think we had 2 commissioners there. We had a whole bunch of people. I've got pictures of it. I've got pictures of me on stage with the senator, and both of us speaking. But we discussed having and this is a nasty word in North Carolina right now because they just did a permit system that I don't like anything about it, to be honest with you. But we discussed having a permit system where that a hunter, not a club, an individual hunter, would receive a permit and their dog would have identification on their dog. It didn't have to be a number painted on the dog, it'd be on their collar, whatever. But the dog was identified. And a committee would review complaints. If Todd's dog was on Chad Fuller's property and Chad pitched a fit about it, the committee would review that report and they would look at, well, is this the first time this happened? Mr. Edwards, control your dog better and keep your dog off Mr. Fuller's property. We don't punish mistakes, right? But like I said, if it happened every Saturday, every time I turned the dog loose, if he went to straight to Chad's property and run laps for 30, 45 minutes or all day, that's a habit and that's a bad habit and that should be punished. And we suggested incremental fines and even revoking the dog permit. Unfortunately, the state of North Carolina, in its wisdom, went with a totally different solution that another group had that was a horrible solution, and we fought it tooth and nail and defeated it. So the same people that were working trying to solve the problem turned around and became the people fighting to continue it simply because the solution that was proposed was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. So that's, you guys ask what my solution is. My solution is you hold the people accountable that constantly violate. If your dog's constantly on somebody else's property, that's a problem. And I want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to keep turning the dog loose. I love hearing dogs run. I can shoot, but I prefer to really just run the dog, catch the dog, and go home. When you take a deer, that's when the work starts. Somebody asked a question, Chad, about how many deer were taken off your property, and the comments, I think some of them were last night. A whole bunch of comments just came in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let y'all talk, and I'm gonna read the comments, and I'll come back and give y'all the Cliff Notes version of them. Steven,
Well,
Stafford, one of y'all take it.
I can tell you, growing up, the way we stopped dogs, you killed the deer. Obviously now we try to manage these deer and let them live, so you have a little harder time catching dogs, but that's how we did it growing up. The bottom line, you need to respect your neighbor, keep your dogs off his property at all costs. We have a rule at the club I hunt with now. You can't visit our club and bring dogs because, one, we don't know that you can stop your dogs, and two, you don't know the property. I know the Garmin gives you a map, but until you hunt that property, you don't realize how fast you need to get from point A to point B. Some properties move slower. Dogs don't move through thickets faster. So we don't allow visitors to bring dogs until they visited 3 or 4 times, and we've got to know them, and then we'll let them bring a few dogs to make sure that we're not encroaching on our neighbors. And one of my neighbors, he requests, hey, please don't hunt our side of your property during a certain time frame when they're having kids over there, having like the hunt for the kids, because they don't want us to interfere with them. And we honor that. And we don't ever interfere with them, but the whole point is they ask for a favor, we give them a favor. We ask for a favor, we give them a favor. It's all about being neighborly to each other. That's what the whole hunting community has to come together. Whether you're still hunting, managing property, everybody has to come together to one goal. And because if dog hunting's eradicated, it's not long before it's something else. It's not long before it's the rabbit hunting, the coon hunting, the hog hunting. It's all in a pot together. It just depends on which tick they pick first. I don't see it for financial reasons. And Chad, you can speak on this as far as revenue coming into the state. What is the General Assembly or legislature saying the impact would be if dog hunting was to be gone?
Well, honestly, I don't know what those numbers are yet. And we haven't, researched any of that because that is not our thing. We don't want dog hunting to be gone, period. That has never been anything that we FOIA'd or anything along those lines, because that is a foregone conclusion. We don't want that to happen. So I don't want to see it gone. So why would I target the numbers on that? That's putting the meat on the outside of the sandwich, so to speak. So what I'm trying to do is find a reasonable solution to the problem. And, and honestly, if from what I'm hearing on this particular meeting, in this particular podcast are some really good things, some really good ideas. And those are things that we need to move forward with. And honestly, as we discussed previously, and what had happened in North Carolina is if we don't come to an agreement, if we work hand in glove and present something to the legislature that maybe is boiling the frog slowly, like we talked about, it's not going to be the right solution, but let's go with the least restrictive methods and move it forward. We're not asking for a sledgehammer. We're just asking what might curtail this nuisance and the quote unquote bad apples that everybody acknowledges are out there. So having that solution, that conversation is important. And I hopefully more people will come to the table. And that's one of the reasons we created this organization, was to bring people to the table. But there's a couple other things that, I want to say as to the comments. Why do you care how many deer I killed on my property last year? I will tell you, I left a lot of tags unfilled. And I had taken some disabled veterans and some of my clients, but that became a point of contention last night. And but a lot of people really care what's going on my property, and I'm here to protect my property. So I guess that's a part of it.
So we just had Michael Bradley pop in from the comments. I'm going to let him say hi. And if he's got a question, go ahead and ask it. Your mic's muted, Michael. We can't hear you, Michael. You're muted. Michael, I'm going to let you take care of some technical difficulties. I don't have you muted, but you're showing muted. You've got to unmute. If you look on the bottom of your screen, there's some icons, and the far left icon is your microphone.
I had to click on my icons and pull up.
Stephen, I do have a few notes jotted down on revenue if you want to hear them.
Absolutely. I'm curious to see what economic impact it would cause. Not mentioning the insurance companies.
That you've got dog hunting supply businesses, you've got veterinarians, you've got dog food companies, you've got state income from hunting licenses and additional purchase tags, you've got property taxes that we also pay on our land that we dog hunt, got leases that we pay, and in the revenue brought to towns, one thing I looked up was the Grand American in Orangeburg. That revenue's anywhere from $4 to $7 million a year, just in those few short days, over lodging, food, restaurants, vendors, purchases, everything like that. That's a pretty big impact, I would say, if we cut out dog hunting completely.
Right. and not to mention local deer processors and things like that Mitchell King takes about. I don't know what it would impact, but it would be significant, I believe.
But
like,
guys, no, can I just step in there?
Yeah,
We
go
don't want deer hunting to go away. Like
Okay.
deer dog hunting to go away. That's it. Like this is not what we're arguing for. So I don't want to get off on another tangent because that's the narrative I want to absolutely correct is that everybody thinks that's what these SCDNR hearings are about and what PPA is about, and that is not what it is about. So I mean, we're putting the cart before the horse in that regard.
No,
You know?
I understand, Chad, completely where your organization and what these meetings are about, but there are people out there that want dogs completely banned. I've been reading comments on Facebook the last few days, and there are absolutely people out there that just want to do away with it completely. And my comment was to them, not your organization.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I just want to make sure that's corrected on my side. Yeah, that's just, I want to make sure it's corrected, from my organization side, because I think a lot of people have gotten it the wrong way out there. So that's kind of where, I mean, our organization is not against it. I just want to correct that narrative so many times because it feels like in the comments, that's what they think that we're pushing. And I just have to correct it every time it comes up. So I apologize if I was, overstepping the boundaries there.
No, I just wanted to clear that up.
Right. There's a lot of people in the comments and on these forums that follow me and Army of Orange that have stated if any legislature is passed, it's like, low hanging fruit. It won't be long before it's more and more until it's gone. That's what they're concerned with. And that's why I address it to show that the economical impact of completely getting rid of it would be tremendous. Anything from leases to the insurance companies, everything. There's not another avenue of hunting that kills more deer and keeps them out the roadways than dog hunting. I mean, still hunters don't. I can promise you that. And most still hunters will shoot a doe, and then they're waiting on mossy horn monster buck to come by, and the farmer's not happy because his crops are getting eat up. Nobody kills more deer than dog hunters, and to keep them out the roadways for insurance purposes, stuff like that. But there is people who are concerned that if anything is changed, it'll all go away. It's a matter of time, like the death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's exactly why, and I know a lot of people were really, kind of irritated about the motorcycle side of what I gave at the starting of this and the back history. We have passed a lot of legislation on the motorcycle side that has actually expounded rights. If you come to a stoplight in South Carolina after 120 seconds, you can treat that on a motorcycle as a stop sign. You can still yield. So we actually created more rights by creating a law. So I don't think that some of those people that make some of those arguments are stating that, it's necessarily the right way. Just like I talked about H3231, we actually created more rights for motorcyclists to go into parking garages. This is an opportunity where we can create more rights for you guys, but also protect our rights, work hand in glove. I think that's that synergy. It needs to be a, not a parasitic relationship, but a symbiotic relationship.
I agree. And a lot of people don't know, but there are multiple opportunities to make money in the sport of dog hunting. There are multiple scholarship opportunities for my child. And
Yes.
to the people that want to completely ban dog hunting, that's going to take a lot off of my table if it does happen to happen like that.
Yeah.
A lot on my because I spend a fortune dog hunting.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
the price of dogs, the price of equipment, everything else. I hunt 6 nights a week year round.
Phew. What the moral, Chad, is we're trying to push is the majority of us dog hunters, whether it's coon, rabbit, hog, we want to be good stewards and good neighbors. And we're trying to find a common goal that achieves that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that's what this is all about. So I really appreciate you guys. I know we're getting towards like the last quarter hour of it. Y'all ever want me back on? I'll be happy to do it too, because I mean this is just the start of. It's kind of one of those things that this is just beginning with these open public forums. I'm still be on for the rest of my allotted time. However, if y'all want me back on, I'll give an open invitation and be open and transparent as to what my organization is dealing with. And additionally to that, that's where once DNR in South Carolina, once again, I know there's a lot of people from other states that might be tuning in. This is only as it pertains to here in South Carolina. Um, that legislative process is going to be the very next battle. And as Todd alluded to, we're going to be dealing with, the fact that we might get something in there that we have to work together to oppose. Which that's why these conversations need to keep happening, and that free range of communication needs to keep happening. And anybody that wants to reach out to me or my organization, there's a Facebook page. There's also a website. Be happy to hear from you. And as long as it's a civil conversation, I'll never have a problem with that. Even if you tell me to, put it where the sun don't shine, I can understand where you're coming from, but let's do it in a respectful manner, and at least give me some reasons why to put it there.
Hey, Chad, I sent you a text message. Read that real quick. I sent you a screenshot of the comments. And while he's reading those, I'm going to say that the Wiki 85, I for one would pay to hunt deer behind dogs. I can't do it where I live, and I haven't had anyone to go with for several years. I haven't ever seen a deer dog outfitter. That's because there aren't any. There aren't any deer dog outfitters. But that is something that I've thought about is tourism. You can only do this in a few places in the country. I went to Idaho to hunt elk because I couldn't hunt elk in North Carolina. People would come to North Carolina to hunt deer. Stephen, Chafford, you guys. Michael, I'm gonna kick you loose, Michael, because we can't hear you, brother. I'm sorry as I can be. All right, have a good one.
Chad,
Todd, talk to that. You've seen my page, and anybody that wants to dog hunt, they're more than welcome to get me and come do it. I have no problem riding anybody around from anybody. I've invited people from Mexico to come hunt. There's a guy invited me to go to Sydney, Australia, and hunt stags ahead of dogs. Come hunt with me. Enjoy it. If you don't have a place to hunt, you're more than welcome to come ride with us. We love fellowshipping and friendshipping with new people. That's just what it's about.
and I agree, Chad. If you want to, anybody in your organization wants to come along on a coon hunt or whatever it may be and see how it's done the correct way, they're more than welcome to come.
I appreciate it, dude, and I'll probably take you up that. And like I said, starting this out, put up or shut up. I met with them yesterday in Columbia, and I invited them to come down to my property and dog hunt. So, and we've had some conversations off camera where I will be going with some other people to do deer dog driving. That's, one of the things that I think the last time I did it, I was a very small child with my father. And unfortunately, we've had issues where my father's been and stands on our property and been overrun with dogs. And you're talking about a guy that did it and saying, this is fucking bullshit. Excuse my French, but that was, I have seen the problem happen over the last 5 to 8 years versus where, the older generation came up teaching the younger generation the proper way. And I think that is maybe where the disconnect is the younger generation.
That is one issue. Another issue is I feel like the neighborly way of doing things has kind of been thrown out the window. I feel like common courtesy is few and far between nowadays. And I hate to like that, but that's just how it is. So we have to learn to respect everybody's rights.
Well,
And
well
if
Chafford,
of doing
If the
things.
first conversation you have with someone is you cursing at them, that's not a good thing. And you
Absolutely.
never have a second chance to make a first impression. And unfortunately, really unfortunately, that is the first contact between neighbors sometimes. Is one neighbor just absolutely ranting, raving, cussing, and doing with the other one. And for whatever reason, maybe it's justified, maybe it's not. Maybe they're arguing over a mistake. Another one of my friends that's a lawyer has said that a lot of problems could be handled over iced tea and a piece of cake. That people sitting down and talking, just like we're doing right here,
mhm.
if they'd sit down and talk to each other, iced tea and a piece of cake would probably solve the problem. But and you talking about the comment section. Chad and I had an off camera discussion about that. People in the comment section, a lot of them are in burner accounts. They're not reliable. It's not a reliable cross section. I found that the YouTube comment section is way better than the Facebook comment section. The people in the YouTube comment section usually are vested and willing to talk. The Facebook comment section, there's people with 0 friends and 5,000 comments that jump in and make statements. But the willingness to talk, and I had people that actually unfollowed me because I was willing to sit down and talk to Chad Fuller. I was going to have the devil on my podcast and talk to him. I've had a couple of people message me during this and say, how's it going? Are you getting anywhere with him? And I'm like, it's a really good conversation. You should join in and listen. So, you guys have at it.
One of the biggest takeaways I got was from Chad is understanding there is a right way to do it. A lot of people think that what they're doing is the right way, and it may or may not be. There is a right way of doing it. Like Chad, he talks about he's been dog hunting so long ago. Even amongst clubs, we do it differently. My club focuses on a trail dog that's more slow. Other people prefer more dogs and fast. There's multiple ways of doing it differently. My way might not be the right way, but understanding there is a right way to do it without encroaching on the neighbors is what we need to take away from this.
I agree. I'm glad we could have this conversation. I want to thank y'all guys for having me on here. And I think we're making a little step in the right direction.
Well, Mr. Chafford, you want to reach out to me? I'm not hard to find on Facebook. I think it's gotten plastered everywhere else. Please feel to reach out. I'd be happy to have conversations with you moving forward. Anyone else that's like-minded, I will give that olive branch as well too. But at the same time, want to make sure that, I've gotten a lot of hate mail and stuff like that over this. And I wanted to kind of correct the narrative. And I hate that I'm coming out as the devil because I'm not. I'm trying to reach an equitable compromise on behalf of myself and my organization. And I don't think that's a huge ask at this day and age. But like you said, sweet tea and a piece of cake, that probably would be a lot easier, but I guess our sweet tea and a piece of cake is doing a podcast.
Hey, I like sweet tea and a piece of cake now. Before we get off here, I've recently partnered with Swamp Donkey Outfitters for your hunting stuff, and I would like to see hunting continue because I'd like to see them guys in a small mom and pop shop, veteran owned, continue to grow. And I'm afraid that there'd be so many people disenfranchised and out of a business if this was to be eradicated. So I definitely want to keep it going. And Chad, if you want a dog hunt, get with me. We have Family Day coming up around November. That's the best time to come. We cook and we eat and we fellowship, and we usually hunt early in the day. Then we fellowship the rest of the day. The kids play, and it's just fun. That's always the best time to come for us. But I've enjoyed it, and I appreciate everybody's willing to talk about it. That's the only thing to move us forward is talking about our shortcomings and improving on them.
Yep. And one more thing I'd like to say is I myself and my buddy Eric Presley runs a nonprofit called Battlefront Outdoors. Well, we've taken several veterans and disabled and law enforcement, etc., in the woods on dog hunts. That's something I enjoy doing. So if y'all guys know any disabled or veterans or anything, get with Eric on Battlefront Outdoors, and we'd be glad to take them hunt.
That sounds
Uh,
great.
ju-
Look, guys, if you guys want to end it, we can, but I mean, the 8 o'clock thing, if you guys have got more stuff we need to cover, we don't have to shut it off right at 8.
I'll give a couple more minutes. You don't want my hourly billable rate though. I promise you that.
I'm not paying you.
Well, you'll get a bill. No, don't worry about it. No, it's no, but from that standpoint, I don't mind talking for a little bit. But what I will say is, and I love the disabled veterans and stuff. I do the same thing on my property. And in relation to that, one of the things that I found too, that if you take a Harbor Freight trailer, they're really cheap, and you can build a blind on it. Once again, I'm coming from a steel hunter perspective, so y'all don't crucify me, but it's already got the ramp on it, and we move it around the property, and it works out great for disabled veterans and things like that. And it's a way you can put it right on a side by side and move it in and out, and I love anything that has to deal with our veterans and helping, that, and that is definitely one of my passions as well.
So this, we got somebody here in the comments. Minimum acreage will not work. There's not enough acreage for everybody to have big tracts of land. I've been hunting on my club for 45 years. Are you guys with big tracts of land going to let me come hunt with you? The answer was yes. It's already been answered. Maybe you're tuning in late, but it's already been answered that yes, you could. Steven said you couldn't bring your dogs to run on his club, but you could come visit and you could hunt with his dogs. And the reason being was need to be able to stop the dogs. Steven, your fan told you made some very good points, like having deer run on other people's property. And the still hunters would rather cuss you out than help you get your dogs and get out of the way. I can't hunt my dogs off property. I just want to get them back and get off your property. That is Jamie Bolt. Yeah, I just said that sometimes, unfortunately, the first contact you got with somebody's them cussing at you. But I generally don't have that happen to me. I don't know if it's because I'm 6'4" and look kind of like a Sasquatch, but generally I don't have that. I generally try and respect people, and people generally give respect back. I don't know.
And I'm the same way. I usually don't have that happen to me either, but I am scared that one day somebody's going to shoot my dog, or somebody is not going to let me go get my dog, and something's going to happen to her. I mean, there's so many cases, and Todd, you've seen firsthand and done podcasts on some of them, of dogs being shot off of trees, not harassing livestock, not doing anything but tree, and people will shoot them off of a tree. And that is a fear of mine.
Yeah, you're right. I had a couple of things that I've covered this year had two, as a matter of fact, where the coon hunters, their dogs were shot on the tree. They were on property. They had permission to hunt. And one of these, actually, I think both of these might have been in competition hunts, but one of these was in a competition hunt where there was $100,000 or $200,000 prize money. It was life-changing money. And they were on the way to the tree when they heard the gunshots. And they're both still unsolved at the moment. There have been large rewards put up.
I will say to your podcast right now, that anybody that wants to join our organization and wants to shoot a dog, don't join our organization, period. Please, you're doing it the wrong way. You want to harm a dog, you want to take the collar off, no, don't join our organization. Work towards a peaceable and equitable resolution to this. And I'll be happy to support greater penalties for people that do that. Once again, how, and I said this earlier, and for those of y'all joining in, we're not against dog hunting. How am I going to sit there and advocate for my property rights when I'm not going to respect your property rights as it pertains to that dog? That is a distinct dichotomy that cannot be caught to an equitable resolution.
Chad,
Chad,
do
I'm,
you do pro
go
bono
ahead, Chaffer.
criminal law?
What was that?
Do you do pro bono criminal law? Because if somebody was to hurt one of mine, I would need you.
You're already asking me to do free work. I'm already here for 2 hours for free, and you're asking me
I'm
for
just-
more free work. I mean, really and truly,
Some of
geez,
us,
you know, I mean,
dogs to the
I
point.
wasn't gonna
We-
ask you to do free work, but I was gonna ask you that if a situation comes up in South Carolina where it happens, would you represent the dog hunter? We've proved that we can raise tens of thousands of dollars fairly quickly for these situations.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we can pay you. We don't need you to do it pro bono. We can pay you. But would you do it?
yeah, absolutely. You know, if it's absolutely hurting a dog, doing something like that, I would not. Yeah, I mean, the law is the law, and I, as an officer of the court, need to help uphold the law. Sometimes laws need to be changed. That could be done through a judicial capacity. It could be done through a legislative capacity. But yeah, I would not be opposed to that. It would, you know, I hate to say it this way because it's what happens every time somebody calls my law office. I represent 1% motorcyclists, which I'm sure if you guys in the motorcycle world knows what 1% is, all the way to
There's
the
a lot of
weekend
people that
warrior.
don't.
All right. Well, I represent those guys all the way up to, you know, the weekend warriors. And I don't have a problem in engaging in any of that. The thing is the totality of the circumstances. What's the totality? So I'm not going to sit there and give you a blank check to say, yes, I'll absolutely do it.
I fully
but yes,
understand that.
but
That
yes,
I
yeah,
understand.
I
You
would,
gotta
I would
evaluate the
absolutely
situation.
entertain it. Yeah, and if y'all want to give me a call, I would not have a problem, because our organization is against shooting, hurting, or killing dogs. I have no problem doing that, and that will no way in shape or form be a conflict of interest.
There's somebody trying real hard to get in and talk to us, and I've admitted them 5 or 6 times, and they never show up. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if there's a glitch. We've had some technical issues tonight. So whoever that is, Meyer, I think, or Myers, I've let you in 5 or 6 times. I'm sorry that it keeps bouncing you out. And from the comment section, Stephen, your fan, does anybody know who this Michael Brady person is? Name ring a bell to anybody? Chad, is that some of your people?
No, none that I recognize.
I agree, Chad. I ask hard questions, and I am the enemy.
I don't have enemies myself, but I will tell you back to the veteran, coming from 100% disabled combat veteran myself, if you or Clifford, anybody wants to organize a veteran hunt, I got 3,000 acres, and I know my club members would love to chaperone veterans on a hunt. Disabled veterans, we would love to do it. So if y'all know somebody, y'all want to put on a disabled veteran hunt, my club, I know my members would love to sponsor that and take care of that. So if that comes up, y'all let me know.
That sounds good. We'll absolutely make that happen.
I'm on board.
I'm also a veteran. And my guest tomorrow night is a veteran. So there's a whole bunch of us out here that are veterans.
Lost your mic, Todd.
He's gone again.
Let's see, is he working now?
You're back.
He's barking. At least the dogs are barking, right?
Yep, you're back now.
I said it's 8:04, 8:05. I guess we can go ahead and start putting a bow on this thing. We've had a good conversation tonight, I think. I'm going to give the people in the comment section the opportunity to ask one last question if they want to. Somebody I think's joining late said, how much does dog hunting raise at some of these hunts for kids, cancer and disability? I can answer that question for you. We did a hunt for a young man to get a service dog for his, I think it was diabetes dog. It was Juvenile Diabetes Association. Being a diabetic, that organization's kind of near and dear to my heart. But you said, how much money can we raise? We did a field trial. I was a judge at the field trial, and we raised $22,000 in 4 hours. $22,000 in 4 hours. If that answers your question, how much money can we raise? We can raise some money for
Todd, you on again. I see we got Tammy coming in.
You wanna take it over, Stephen, and just like see what Tammy has to say?
Yeah, if I can. I don't think she's fully in yet. Miss Tammy, are you there? All right, Todd's gone. He'll be right back. There he is.
Well, I'm back. Tammy's microphone's muted again. Tammy, your microphone's muted.
Guys, I'm gonna get on off of here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and thank y'all for having me.
All right, brother. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one.
Y'all
So,
too.
Thank-
Chad, I got one for
Thank
you.
you for attending. All right.
I got one for you. This is something that I hear all the time, and Stephen and I had this conversation before. I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed at all these ranchers and chicken farmers that live in apartments across South Carolina. Danielle Cox, I am legally allowed to protect my property if there's a deer dog attacking my animals. And if the dog is attacking the animals, I agree with that. But a lot of times we hear stories, for example, there's a South Carolina case where there was a $248,000 judgment where that guy said the dog was attacking his animals, and the GPS collar put the dog 100 yards from any animals and shot on the tree. And it cost him a whole bunch of money. So I'm going to let you answer this question, Chad, because you are the legal expert in the panel.
All right. Well, you didn't really ask a question. So for first off, I'm going to try
The
and
question
assume what your question is, but you know what I ask you, it makes you and me when it comes to assume, but yeah.
So the question is, well, I know that it is, I know there are situations where it's justified, but can you lay out the, is it a blanket justification? You know, can I just say that and no matter whether it's true or not, can that work, or how does that work?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we've got to kind of bring into context two different things in a case like that. If people remember the O.J. Simpson case, where he was found not guilty of murder, but maybe guilty of the civil context, that's where you remember you have to have the criminal and the civil. Now, on this particular context, I don't know what happened. Once again, not having all the facts and totality of the circumstances. If you have a dog that is attacking a domestic livestock animal, such as a chicken, a goat, a horse, under South Carolina law, you have every right to dispatch that dog, period. But you have to be able to show where that attack is happening. You have to be able to show where, you took the reasonable measures. That is really a jury trial question on the criminal side, because let's say the dog is postured barking at an animal, you can't kill it in that context. It is not technically attacking. At least that would be my position. If it is stressing the animal out to the point where it would be a fear of imminent death, then that's a possibility. It's a very subjective standard, and that's actually going to go back to a jury trial question. That's a question of fact. So with the totality of the circumstances in that particular situation, is it reasonable or prudent for someone to have taken the measures that they took? Now, from a civil context perspective, if your animal does attack someone, you have to give restitution and damages for the animal that has been destroyed. So it's actually triggering two sides of law depending on the totality of circumstances. So that's the hard part. And I mean, a lot of people love watching like live PD and court TV and stuff like that. I personally don't watch it because that's what I do day in and day out. It's kind of, like, why do I go to work to go do the same thing? But at the same time, that's where you have to be reasonable and prudent in the actions that you're taking. That comes from both parties, from the one that is dispatching the dog, I guess, in that particular situation, or protecting their livestock. And then from the other standpoint is, why is it there? And the laws are somewhat ambiguous as it pertains to South Carolina. You're really gonna have to deal with the totality of the circumstances.
The person could probably save themselves a whole lot of trouble if they would find another solution, or maybe a different solution. Deadly
Yeah.
force might not, because you said that would be a question for a jury.
It would be. Yeah.
I don't think people understand exactly what's involved in that. I do. You do. Stephen does. I don't think people fully understand what all's involved in that. I don't think they fully understand civil litigation. That's like getting married. When people are like, "Oh, just sue them." When you start suing people, I mean, you link up with them 5 or 6 years. You got all kinds of stuff to go through, and it's you do, because you do it for a living. I mean, you understand it.
Yeah, you do. So
Most
let me
people in the
explain.
comment section don't.
Let me explain that okay, so from a criminal context, that's what, like, DNR would be doing, enforcing it under the executive branch. If you go back to, and a lot of people didn't pay attention in high school, learning about, the government, learning about the executive branch, the judicial branch, and obviously the legislative branch. They don't understand how all those things marry together, but they are very much a part of your world. And honestly, they're more of a part of your world on a very local and micro level versus macro. Everybody wants to talk about Trump or Biden or Obama or Harris. What happens on your micro level is what affects you on a day-to-day basis. So from a criminal standpoint, that is going to be legislation has been passed, enforced through the executive branch. That's going to be the governor's office and law enforcement. So an LEO division, whenever they bring a criminal charge, they're going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt whatever that circumstance is. For me as a criminal defense attorney, I don't have to prove that my client is innocent. I just have to create reasonable doubt. Okay. So a lot of people will say, like, well, why are you representing this person? And when you know they're guilty, I don't know they're guilty. That's going to be up to a jury question. Law enforcement has to prove, and that includes wildlife game violations, things like that, up to, that beyond a reasonable doubt. My job as a criminal defense attorney is to create reasonable doubt. Now, when it comes to a civil case, it is a matter of preponderance of the evidence. And preponderance of the evidence is if you take Lady Justice and you're just saying, I put a feather on the scale and it goes this way, that is my preponderance. I don't have to prove that hard when it comes to beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the difference is criminally, they take away points on your license, they fine you, you have maybe asset forfeiture. Civilly, it is just a civil penalty, which would mean paying, restitution and damages, or not even restitution, it would be just damages under that particular cause of action, whether it's nuisance or negligence or anything along those lines.
Thank you on that. The person that asked the question said, thank you for clarifying. And you got one more, and we're going to put a bow on it unless you guys want to talk about
No.
something else. The Myers person and the only reason I'm taking their question now is because they tried to get in. The Myers person that tried to get in 3 times wants to ask Chad, what is your exact problem with the Renegade Act?
We actually explained that earlier in this podcast, was that as the Renegade Act is currently written, it is almost unenforceable. I don't have a problem with the Renegade Act. The issue is going back to that, opinion from Alan Wilson and the South Carolina Attorney General's office. It is not addressing the issues that my clientele or my organization has currently. So that's the issue. Is it's not a bad act. It is just too gray to where we have taken the handcuffs off DNR agents to affect the bad apples and put them on their own hands, the own DNR agents' hands, versus putting them on the hands of the bad actors.
Okay.
So basically, you're saying that it's handcuffing them; they can't complete their tasks. Is what you're saying?
Yes, and that's coming from numerous conversations with SCDNR, from the not only the administrative side but also the law enforcement side. That is what has been an issue, is because they are essentially prescribed from making those tickets, and it's a piss poor allocation of resources, because now you're having all these calls about the deer dogs, for problems like guys like me and PPA, and there is no legitimate way to address the issue because it's conflicted under that preemption doctrine.
So they responded again and said, no beating around the bush. What's your exact problem with the Renegade Act? I feel like you answered with your opinion, and you even cited some legal action. So I feel like I've got your answer.
He's basically too gray. It's not specific enough.
It just needs to be massaged. It needs to be massaged into a way that it would be enforced to address the bad actors. That's the issue. In its current state, it is not addressing the issues.
Mike's gone again, Todd. Yelling at it ain't gonna help.
Hey, can you hear me now? I was saying, Chad, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Stephen, thank you again for another fire podcast. I mean, every time we get together, we set the woods on fire, it looks like. But Chad, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your ideas with us. And the people that see you at these meetings need to come over and talk to you.
I'll be there tomorrow. I will be there tomorrow in Orangeburg. I'll also be there in Walterboro. I wouldn't mind having a conversation with any of you guys, and that's what we're here for. But just please keep it respectful, cordial, and admittedly, I have had some people, threaten me and have some negative things to say. And if that's what you're coming with, please don't, because that's just not what this is about.
I think a lot of it, Chad, is people are afraid of change. They don't understand, and they don't want no change because they're afraid if anything changes, all will change. And the history has shown that with other regulations, with the commercial fishing on the lakes and other things like that. Usually you give a little and they take a lot, and that's why people are so apprehensive to hear your side of things.
Well, I'm going to sign off, guys. Thank you very much for having me on this platform. If you need me again in the future, please feel free to reach out. This thing is not going to get done in one day. It's going to get done over the course of many months and potentially many years. My experience in working to have effective legislation and the effective laws changed, it takes that. So let's keep the dialogue open.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. And that's it, folks. Chad came in tonight. We had a great conversation. Stephen was here. And I'm going to give a plug to Christopher Mell. He's been on the podcast. He's a mathematician. He's a houndsman. He's the man. He's up and around D.C., believe it or not. And he wrote a wonderful book. Check it out. It's on Amazon. There's the, I hope the camera will focus on it. There's the ISBN number. Anyway, there's the title. Check out his book, guys. I get $0 from every book he sells. $0, and I need my money. Stephen was hawking something a few minutes ago where he actually has a sponsorship. Chris ain't sponsoring me. He just got a good book.
We got a
Stephen,
partnership
what
with
you think, man?
So I posted last night, Swamp Donkey Outfitters, use promo code BBK10 for 10% off your purchase there. Veteran owned. I support all the veterans I can, you know.
I hear you, buddy. Well, look, thank you so much for jumping in here tonight on short notice and helping me with this, because I knew this was going to be a busy one. I knew this was going to be wide open. We've had a couple hundred people in the stream tonight. We had a bunch of comments. You got a new fan?
Well, maybe me and him can come to a common agreement, you know. I believe the Tammy that was trying to come in was his spouse. She went by her last name was Brady. So that was probably them trying a different account. Maybe next time they'll be able to get through.
They actually said in the comments that they'd try again later, and that they really wanted to be part of the conversation. And I respect that. You know, if you're willing to come on camera and talk to us, that's great. The software, we were having some technical difficulties tonight we've never had before, and that's kind of interesting. But thank you so much, buddy. You got anything else before we get out of here?
I'm good, man. I appreciate it. The biggest thing is, like I said, a takeaway is knowing there is a right way. And that's all there is to it.
And you're right. There is a right way. There is a right way. And I'm going to say it again. We don't punish mistakes, but we sure should not reward bad habits.
Agreed. All right, buddy. Have a good night.
I'll catch y'all on the next one.